Good morning, students. In this today's session, we are going to take up a beautiful poem written by Walter de la Mare. The name of the poem is The Mother Bird. Now, in this poem, The Mother Bird, the poet Walter de la Mare brings to us or shows us or depicts a very simple and a common scene which we come across very frequently. That is a mother bird watching over her nest, which has eggs in it. Now, many of us might have seen mother bird and waiting upon her eggs, watching carefully so that no enemy harms them. No, so this is a very common scene, and the poet describes this common scene in this bird. And the poet imagines and presents a range of emotions which the bird might be going through that time while she is waiting upon her eggs, like the emotions of fear. There's fear in her, there's courage, there is hopelessness, there is joy. So, all kinds of emotions which she goes through. So, the poet describes those beautiful emotions through a very, very simple poem, a very simple scene. Now, in this poem, the poet, in the form of a human being, he acts as an intruder. He goes there, no, and he peers through the hedge. The hedge is kind of bush, no, where in a very highly leafed, thickly leafed bush, where the in between the bird has made the nest, which is secret so that nobody can see it easily. So the poet goes there as an intruder and he peers through the edge to see the bird. And he watches, he looks at the bird, he tries to imagine the kind of emotions which the bird expresses in through her note, the solitary note, and then ultimately in the end he has to retreat. He feels like a foolish why he did so, and he has to retreat back, and he's feeling like a foolish in front of that bird. So let us first go through the poem. I hope you people have your book with you. Please open the page, The Mother Bird. Through the green twilight of a hedge. So, in the first line, the poet describes the situation, the condition. He says, I through the green twilight. Children, meaning of twilight is when it's early morning time, when it's not totally daylight, but it is very, very dim light. It's the time when the morning and the night in between, no? When the light is very dim. So he says, through the green twilight of a hedge, I peered with cheek on the cool leaves pressed. So he says, I peered, I saw through that green twilight of a hedge, because the light which was entering through that hedge, it was appearing like a green colored light because it was filtering through the green leaves. It was a very, very thick and dense hedge, and the light which was filtering through that hedge, it was like a twilight. It was very dim and it was appearing like green because it was filtering through the green leaves. So the first line, through the green twilight of a hedge, I peered. So he says, I peered, I saw, I looked with cheeks on the cool leaves pressed. And he says, he describes this place. He says, the cool leaves of the hedge, they were pressing on my leaves. So and spied a bird upon a nest. So the poet says that I secretly saw. Spied means secretly saw something, and he secretly saw a bird which was waiting upon her nest. Two eyes she had beseeching me. So, although the poet had taken very much care that he did not make much noise or he did not disturb, and he did it very, very quietly and secretly, but still, the bird was so alert that she could make out that the poet was there watching her. So her eyes, they were looking at the poet. Her eyes were on the poet only. So she was so alert. Two eyes she had, beseeching me. The word beseeching means pleading, me, begging. So her eyes, there was a sort of request in her eyes. When she was looking at the poet, there was a kind of request, a plead in her eyes. Now, what could be that request? Maybe she was requesting the poet not to harm her babies with the eggs. No? Meekly and brave. So, meekly means very timid, very, very scared. So, there was a kind of feeling in her eyes, the kind of feeling which the poet saw in her eyes. He saw two different and contrasting emotions and feelings. One was meekly, she was appearing timid and scared and brave, There was courage also in her eyes. So, the courage of a mother to save her babies at any cost. And of course, she was timid, she was scared also, because she knew that she was just a little bird and any enemy could do anything. So there was two contrasting emotions which the poet saw, meekly and brave. And her brown breast throbbed hot and quick above her heart. So as soon as she saw the poet intruding and looking in at the nest, her heart started beating very fast. So her brown breast throbbed. Throbbed means it was moving out, beating very fast. Hot and quick means fast. So her whole body, her brown body, the lower side of her body, it was moving very hot and quick. So she was, because of that scare. And then she oped her dagger bill. So under these emotions, when she had request in her eyes, she was timid, she was scared, but there was courage also, and her heart beat was very fast and hot. Then at last what she did, she oped her dagger bill. She opened. Opt means opened. She opened her dagger bill. Dagger bill means beak. Now, after she opened her dagger bill, she opened her beak. Now, what did she speak? Let us see the next line. It was not a chirp, as sparrows pipe. So the poet says, as soon as she opened her beak and she made a sound, the chirping sound, but this chirp was not the regular chirp which the birds make, which the sparrows pipe. Pipe means which they speak, which they make. So it was not that regular chirping of a sparrow, which the sparrows, they speak at the break of the day, at the beginning of the day. Break of the day means beginning of the day. It was not a trill as falters through the quiet even. And then he describes the second. He says, it was not a regular chirp which the sparrows, which they speak at the break of the day, at the beginning of the day. Neither was it a musical note which we uncertainly, which we hear in the quiet even means evening. So neither was it a regular chirping which we hear at the break of the day, nor it was a musical note, which we hear at which falters means us unsteadily, which is uneven. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's very slow, sometimes it just fades down. So neither was it a musical note which we hear in the quiet evenings. And then he describes what kind of note it was, but one sharp solitary note. So the note which the bird chirped, which the bird was making, it was one sharp solitary note. Solitary means lonely, one. So she just made one kind of sharp sound, which was very, very sharp and very, very clear and very hard, we can say. One desperate, fierce, and vivid cry. Now, these words, they are expressing what kind of note, what kind of feelings were being expressed by the bird through her sharp, solitary note. So when the poet heard that note, he felt that the bird's note had one desperate, fierce, and vivid cry. So there was a sense of desperation. Desperate means she was like, her note expressed that if the poet does anything wrong to her nest, then she could do anything to save her babies. And it was fierce, it was dangerous. Her note appeared to be very frightening to the poet, and a vivid cry. It was very clear. She wanted to make her note, make her point very clear, that I am watching my babies, and if you hurt or do any kind of harm to my babies, I will not leave you. So this note, this point, the poet could easily make out from her note. Of valiant tears and hopeless joys. Now, look at the two opposite emotions expressed here also. So, valiant tears. Now, tears, tears, they don't express something brave, but the word valiant means brave. So, the tears express that she was afraid, she was scared, but along with that, the tears, the poet writes that the tears were valiant. She had a sense of bravery and courage also, and hopeless joy. And then that note expressed hopeless joy. Now see, again, two opposite emotions expressed here: joy also and hopelessness also. Maybe hopelessness, that if she was afraid that maybe if the poet harms them, then what would be, then she would be hopeless. And but there was a sense of joy also, which a mother had inside her, that she could imagine that she will be able to save her babies, and the poet will not be able to do any harm to them, and she will be able to see her babies flying and growing up. So both opposite emotions expressed in one, so many feelings, rather, so many different types of emotions expressed through her one note. It was desperate also, which expressed that she would do anything to save her babies. Her note expressed fierce. It was a frightening. It made her point very clear, vivid cry of valiant tears and hopeless joy. One passionate note of victory. So, another description of the note, the poet says that note expressed victory. No, it was so passionate, there was so much of passion in her note, that she believed that she will be victorious, she will be able to save her babies from her enemy. So that note expressed, there was a note of victory, passionate victory. And after hearing this, all these, after undergoing, or after feeling, after watching all these emotions in the bird, the poet felt like a fool. He felt why he came here, why he disturbed the bird, why he made the bird undergo all kind of different feelings and scare feelings. So, off like a fool, afraid I sneaked. So the poet felt kind of a fool, and he felt afraid also. Just imagine, the poet felt afraid of a bird. So he felt afraid, and he sneaked, he went back quietly, feeling like a fool. Smiling the smiles, the fool smiles best. And he says that I had a smile on my face, but this was the smile of a fool's, which the fools smile when they feel, they understand that what they have done was very foolish. At the mother bird in the secret hedge. So he was smiling at the mother bird, at the brave mother bird in that secret in hedge, patient upon her lonely nest, who was patiently watching upon her lonely nest. So, through this poem, the poet describes what a mother can do to save her babies, what kind of feelings and emotions, a mother undergoes if she ever faces any enemy, face which could harm her babies. But so the poet describes, different kinds of emotions, like the bird went through. She was pleading, she was meek also, but her tears, she had tears in her eyes, but those tears, they expressed bravery. Her note, when she made that note, it was desperate, it was fierce, and you know, it was a vivid cry, and it just expressed victory, and she was ready to do anything for the sake of her babies, which made the poet scared, and which made the poet feel that what he had done was a foolish thing, and ultimately he had to withdraw himself from that situation, feeling like a defeated fool. So I hope you've understood this poem. So just go through this poem, a beautiful poem expressing the feelings which a mother undergoes. Uh, and thank you, and have a nice day.